Grief is such a difficult state to exist in, and our brains are designed to protect us. And one of the ways that it does this is to avoid deep, unsettling emotions. Our brains would rather engage in distraction and diversion in order to avoid the pain than to be present with the emotions. But we can't think our way through grief. Watch today to learn the signs of avoidance of our grief, and then learn how you might be able to begin to change those patterns. I'm Jo McRogers. Welcome to Grief Support That Works. I'm glad you found us. So let's look at the top indications that you might be avoiding your grief. It's such a natural thing to do. So number one, compulsive type behaviors. Over or under eating, addiction to distractions such as scrolling on our phones, excessive spending, substance use or overuse. Number two, withdrawal from relationships so as not to be asked about your grief. You don't want to speak about it. Number three, overfunctioning as a compensation, doing all that seems to be needed to be done, cleaning closets, taking care of finances, supporting others. It's a sense of a full doing instead of a being. Number four, irritability as a fixed state. It will show up in relationships. It will show up in relationships with yourself and with the world. It may be more comfortable to fight about the antiques, who speaks at the funeral, when to put the house on the market, or of the jewelry that's left behind, than to sit with the pain of the loss, both individually and collectively. Sign number five, pervasive and persistent sleep and eating issues. Your body will likely be dysregulated, and this may be the result of what your heart knows, but your mind isn't letting you acknowledge. Number six, physical symptoms, illness, aches, lowered immune systems, headaches, gut issues, mental health issues. Mental health issues that extend beyond the normal reaches of grief, depression, suicidality, anxiety. All of these experiences will be increased while avoiding grief. Please leave a comment below if you identify that one or some of these behaviors might be dominating, showing up in your grief avoidance. It's so important to normalize this. Now, I have to also comment that each of these distractions and diversions can play a role in healthy grief. As you know, grief is a 24/7 project, and sometimes you just need respite from that full-time job. And this is called pendulation. You can lean into deep emotions for a while and then lean out of them as respite is needed. But where these behaviors become troublesome is when there is no leaning in, but leaning out always. And while this feels protective, it also holds certain risks. Avoiding our grief can protract our grief and the crisis period over a longer period of time. It can be that preoccupation with only the sad or painful memories keep showing up, and that they then become the norm for our grief. We might avoid certain places in an attempt to avoid bringing up painful memories. We might be afraid to form new relationships for the fear of being hurt. Might show up as a continuous obsessing or missing of the loved one. It might be reworking and replaying about what happened and why, and our role in the loss. There may be a hyper alertness or fear of loss that may be ever present. But here is the truth. We can't think ourselves through grief. We have to experience it. So if you suspect you may be struggling with this undertow of loss, consider working towards your emotions in tiny, small pieces. We need to acknowledge that there's a very big difference between working through stuff, even at a snail's pace, and not working through stuff through avoidance. One takes us towards integration, and one takes us further into distraction, diversion, and eventually dysfunction. So please approach your grief with grace and compassion for yourself. Look for small places to insert pattern breakers. Add resources, find a therapist, practice journaling with an emotions wheel. Become aware of your window of tolerance. How much grief is doable for you in any given day? and how much is an overload resulting in avoidance. Don't hesitate to take an honest, self-compassionate inventory of what is serving you and what is hindering in your grief work. Learn your own cadence of leaning in and leaning out, because pendulation is a tool. As you work towards your grief, rather than avoiding it, I send you kind thoughts, kind words, and a kind heart today. If you'd like to learn more about our online supportive community, have a watch for the video that plays next. Thank you so much for your time and take good care.